Whatever we do, whatever communication pieces or segments, whatever we think of, like what is it that we, in our heart, what is it that connects people? And then everything else is easy because it's just tools. Like a website is just a tool, email is just a tool, right? But very important tools, but we need to use them for to get our message across.
Hi, welcome to the Gripe podcast. In this podcast, we learn how to grow mission-driven organizations. I am your host Farhad Khan, CEO of Gripe. We are a digital agency and we help professional associations grow their membership with digital marketing and by building highly engaging membership portals. If you want to grow the membership of your professional association, please take a look at the workshops on our website at gripe.ca/workshops. That is grype.ca/workshops. In this episode, we speak to Kerstin Heuer. Kerstin is the founder of Nonprofit Today. They are a marketing agency and they help nonprofit organizations with their marketing and communication strategies. Today, we will speak to Kerstin to understand how can we target our messages and communication towards a diverse audience and what are some of the tricks that we can use to personalize and target with each one of our core audiences. Kerstin, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you start by telling us a bit about yourself and what you do?
For sure. Thank you very much for having me today. I'm super excited to be on your podcast. As you said, I'm Kerstin and we work with nonprofit organizations and help them to build sustainable brands so that they can reach more of the right people and can create more impact with their cause. And I'm excited to be here today.
Awesome. Kerstin, I'll jump right into it. I guess we work with a lot of professional associations, and one challenge that we often see associations come across is that they have a diverse audience. They have their members, they have their prospective members, they have their board, and many other stakeholders. So if we were to start by segmenting their audience for marketing and communications, where should we start?
Great question. I would like to challenge you because segmenting sounds a little bit like slicing a cake. So let's bring it back to the people. So it's all about the people we want to reach, and then of course we have to segment them, or how I like to say, like I like to use the word buckets. So we have different people with different hopes, dreams, problems, and that is basically what we need to address when we talk to our audience. And I think there are different ways of how you can segment them, but what I like to do is we create like different profiles on what those people in those segments are, based on, of course, the demographic, the socio-demographic, and then also what is most importantly, what is it really that drives them? What are their problems, their issues? And then we have maybe a bucket 1, a bucket 2, a bucket 3, or audience A 1, 2, 3. And then according to that, we can tailor our messaging.
Alrighty, so let's dig more into your buckets.
Yes.
So if we look at bucket 1, right? So bucket 1, how would you put different audiences within bucket 1? So for example, we have the board of directors of a nonprofit, right? And then we have members and prospective members. Would you put two types of audiences from these groups into bucket 1 if the communication is similar, or how would you approach it?
So the more tailored and specific we can be, the better. So, and it always depends on what we want to communicate. So with those buckets, on top of those buckets, we have an umbrella. So, and the umbrella is the overall message. So oftentimes, we use the vision, and the vision we word in a way so that all of those people can identify with it. So, for example, one organization that we work with, they want to improve community safety and well-being. So that would be the overall message. And then, of course, it would be for bucket 1, which might be the internal. There might be the board, the volunteers. And then, of course, we have external. It might be donors that want to support, or it might be people if it's a membership that want to join. So they all have, and then, of course, there's the end the end customer, or like the person that they want to reach in the end, that creates that impact too. So all of these have different connection to this one big umbrella message. And to answer your question, like how many can fit in a bucket, that depends on what you want to get across. If you look at, for example, seniors or youth with the safety and well-being, so for all of them, safety is important, but for a youth, there are different problems than for a senior. So I think it depends on what is it that you want to get across. And from there, you can put maybe several people in one bucket, if that makes sense, as long as it applies to them in the same way. So it's not really, can we put all of them in the same bucket? It's more like, I would go after the message that you want to get across and then think, okay, does this apply to a board member the same way as it does to a volunteer?
Right. Okay,
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I guess like what you're saying is that like we shouldn't just customize the messages based on a segment, but instead like look at the overall goal of the message. What are we trying to do with the message, and then see who this message applies to, and then communicate that message across like maybe multiple segments or multiple buckets, so we can reach all the audience.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. For example, if you, because you want from your board members, you want something different than you want from your volunteers. So if you want to engage your board members and become ambassador of your organization, then you need to address the message in a different way than you have to do it for volunteers, because the volunteers are doing different things.
Right. So in that case, I guess if we were to send out the same email, I'm just giving an example of
Yeah.
an email, then I guess like the email that the volunteer will get should look slightly different than the email that the board member will get, even though the message and goal is very similar.
Yes, exactly. So because the volunteer might not be interested in the things that I have to share with the board. And vice versa. Like, of course, the board should be interested in what we want to communicate with the volunteers, but maybe the other way around, it's not really applicable.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So I will take a step back, and
Yeah.
I want to talk about the organization's website to start with, right? So we'll talk about emails later as well, I guess, but let's start with the website. Now, say if an organization has an audience divide of say like 60% of their audience is in one group, right? Say like prospective members or current members, and then 20% in another bucket, and then another 10. So say 60, 20, 10, 10. If that is the mix of an audience, right? So then how would you plan the organization's website to cater to this diverse audience when you have to speak to 4 very different audience, and where like that a majority of your audience is in that like 60% group, right? But the 10%, which is a very small number, they are small in number, but they may be very important. They may be funders, they may be donors, right? So then how would you cater to these people on your website?
Yeah. Very interesting question, and one that we come across all the time.
All right.
So, of course, from a marketing perspective, I would say, you know what? Focus on one audience, and that's it. Because if you want to reach all of them, your message is very broad and it doesn't connect. Because what we want to do is we want to connect with the heart and with the head. But of course, in reality, we have those different audiences. And I would first of all think, okay, what is the apart from all those audiences, like what is the main purpose of the website? Do I want to increase memberships? Is it more for information? Do I want donation? Is it more for funders? Like, what is the main purpose? And from there you can say, okay, if we want to increase memberships, then the focus in general should be those of increasing or engaging with more possible members. So let's say then the possible members are maybe the 60% of the bucket or the segment. So then I would tailor, I have an overall message, and then I would tailor, you could say, okay, that 60% of the website is for for those members and 20 for these, 20 for that. But what do you say so that people actually look at it? Because we know that we have the attention span that is less than that of a goldfish, right? So less than 3 seconds. So how can you get in less than 3 seconds all those different audiences engaged on your website? I think it's almost impossible. But what you can do is you can have those overarching message that connects with the heart. And then I would have, you could say, if you are do you want to do this? So connect through the message and then connect. Then if you want to do this, click here. If you are a funder, click here. It could be really simple like this. If you're a funder and want to see what impact our organization has, click here. If you are a member, or if you want to increase whatever they want to do, click here. So you can really speak to them. If you can't select just one audience in advance, I would just speak to them directly and say, are you this, are you this, are you that? So that they have to identify with one of those things. And then from there, I would go deeper and say, okay, right now I'm just talking about the homepage. And then from there, you can go deeper and say, okay, when they click here, they go there, so that they land where they are at, because the last thing we want to do is to confuse them.
Right. Makes sense. Actually, that reminds me of something else as well. I guess different stakeholders or different audiences will have different levels of patience on the website, right? Mm-hmm. So when you said that a lot of us actually have the attention span of a goldfish. If I think of a professional association, a prospective member who's coming to the website for the first time will probably be that. They will have the attention span of a goldfish. Mm-hmm. So should we also design the website and cater the messaging so that people who are likely to have less attention span, we give them more real estate, we give them bigger visuals on the website, or give them more space, more messaging, more eye-catching messaging. And then the people who may actually have more patience, like a board member or a prospective board member who's actually researching, they're looking to contribute, and let them self-identify that I'm a donor, or I'm a board member, potential board member. What are your thoughts on that?
Many thoughts. So I would. So I think it's the different kind of people, but also where if we think of a funnel where people they are aware and they want to find out basic information who you are, and then if it's a possible board member, of course they are further down in the funnel and they want more information. So I think of course, it needs. It all depends on where they are at in their customer journey, and we need to grab them where they are at. So how exactly you do that? And Farhad, I totally forgot your question now. So what? So I think the basic. We have to always consider, okay, they are coming people. They don't have a lot of attention span. So, and we need to have something for all of them. And if somebody is really interested, like a possible donor, then they would click on the donor thing, board member thing, if they are interested in more. So we always have to make it less or easily visible. And your question is how can we make it more appealing? I think it's always the idea. Of course, too much text is never good because nobody reads it, to be honest. So we need to have the perfect combination of word and text, of word and picture. And it always starts with the idea. So you can have an idea that is basically driven by a picture or by graphic, or you have an idea that is basically driven just by typo. This is possible too. So both works.
Right. So yeah. I guess what you're saying is that we should have clear structural and visual elements, maybe blocks or boxes with which a potential donor or someone who's further down in the funnel, they can self-identify and then take it from there. So there has to be visual elements on the website, or maybe part of the navigation where they can self-identify as quickly as possible.
Yeah, for sure. And when you, in website terms, you talk above the fold and below the fold.
Yeah.
People that are more interested, they scroll down. So, and if they scroll down, like we can always have more information there, or we guide them on the top and say, click here, click that, and they can see in the navigation where they want to go.
Right. So I am thinking of a potential strategy here, for some
Okay.
potential projects as well.
Yes.
So I guess
Yeah.
like what you just said, that if like the above the fold section of the website is the most important, then maybe the biggest audience that we have, say the 60%, like we can give the above the fold section dedicated to that like biggest audience, and then we know that the smaller audience who are very important, and who will probably have slightly more attention span. We can let them scroll down a little more and like have boxes or visual elements to help them self-identify.
Perfect. I think that would work really well. Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Alrighty. So go ahead.
And then also like what in the past what we have done, like the web, like the homepage is usually the most important part. So, and you probably do that as well, like when you install afterwards, if you install like tracking tools so that you can see what actually works, like go people really further down, or do they just look above the fold and go in the navigation? So I think this always is like a needed a needed practice that we have to do.
Right. So you're saying we have to have tracking tools to find out who are our goldfish in our audience.
Absolutely. And then catch them.
And catch them. Right. That's
And
cool.
then we can talk about lead magnets. Like what is your audience interested in? If you talk about like a possible board member or a possible donor or volunteer member, whatever it is, like how can you get their information, right? Because people usually spend all their money and time and capacity on social media without thinking about how can I connect my social media with my website, and how can I get actually the information from them so that I'm independent from any Facebook, Instagram algorithm and can just email them.
Right. So that's a fight I have with all the marketing teams, that be careful like how much time and like how you spend your time on social media without understanding like what the end goals are. So
Exactly.
yeah, okay,
Yeah,
that's cool.
yeah.
We'll talk about that, I guess.
Yes, let's talk about this later.
Sure. Okay, so I have one more question for you about
Yeah.
the website. So for the website navigation or the information architecture, right? So how would you target the different buckets like for the navigation?
Well, as simple as possible. I've seen pages where there is like almost no navigation, just 3 clicks on the navigation, and then everything else was hidden in the pages, and then at the bottom of the page there is like a bigger navigation. So I think this was a trend for a specific time, but I don't know, like you want to make it easy, but then also you want to have like the user in mind. So I would still say like not more than 3 clicks in total. I would still make it from the perspective of the user, because oftentimes we say our team, but maybe they want to, maybe it should be, I don't know, your team, it should be like from the perspective of the user, can we find a better wording? And then, but also like we have to consider, we can get really crazy with that, but clear is always better than cute. Right?
Oh,
like,
totally.
Yeah. So I would say like basic, like not more than 3 clicks. I would just in the navigation, I would, I don't know, like maybe 3, 4, 5. I think most have 5 main navigation. And then of course, like I wouldn't go, like one sub page would be good. If you go too deep in, of course, it depends. If you have a very information heavy site, you need to do it, but it's very confusing from the user perspective.
Right. Yes. So what you were talking about was the upside down home like website trend.
Right.
And the upside down was in vogue for quite some time. We did upside down as well, and then people started complaining, so we went back to traditional.
Yeah. You know what? Don't you hate it? You go on a website and you want to find something and you can't, because they thought we want every visitor of our website to do just like this. And I said, I don't want to do just this. I want to find something else. And you can't.
Right.
So.
Yeah, so we kind of like came up with a middle ground of being an upside down or how much of upside down you want, right? So,
Yeah.
and and what we did is that like we for one of our clients we removed the navigation from the top altogether, but we gave them like a little like hamburger menu at the top. So and we called it menu. There's a little word saying menu, right? So if anyone is looking for that, they can click on the hamburger menu that is called menu, and then a sidebar opens and you can drill down if you need. But the
Yeah.
website is still upside down.
Yeah.
Alrighty, I think that's great. That's great, Kerstin. Now, in terms of the information architecture itself, like how would you like group pages or like plan the IA, like a big picture maybe?
Can you be a bit more specific, like what you, in terms of like you want to, how to integrate the bigger picture?
Yeah,
So-
yeah. So if you were designing the information architecture for the website, so the navigation plus information architecture overall, like which page belongs where, right? How would you structure that information architecture, like like on a broad perspective? So would it be more job to be done basis? So do you plan the pages as a job to be done, or do you plan the pages based on which bucket this page speaks to, or how would you group them?
Oh, okay. So I would, now I'm thinking, because usually we only plan like the home page with the buckets, and then the navigation goes the traditional way. So in general, I always think of like, what does our audience need? So I always challenge our clients to change perspective and to create it from there. And so I think like the architecture is still kind of traditional in terms of like we have something about, and then we have the vision in there, and then we have the mission and all of this. Yeah, so I would still say it's more traditional and not in terms of buckets. So the buckets and the messaging is more within, and not necessarily in the structure. Does that answer your question a bit?
Yeah, but I think you touched on something very important. You just mentioned that we still need to like change our perspective to like look at the website from the point of view of a visitor, right? So what is the visitor trying to do, right? So I guess like what we probably can do is like if we come to the website as a visitor, like what customer journey am I looking for, right? So as a prospective member, what journey am I looking for? As a board member, what am I looking for, right? And then kind of like give them the journey that is better fit for them, I guess, right? And then the pages inside are only the pieces of their journey.
Exactly. So if you like look at it at a very broad perspective, like what we want to do is connect. So what is the best way to connect? So it always starts with our own identity, of course, as an organization, and then also as a person, but we talk to people. So we need to align with what they want. And that starts when you come from the vision perspective. It also starts with the same values. It also starts with what the impact that we want to have in the world. And that is why people in the end want to do something with you, no matter if it's a donor or like a board member or like a member that you want to reach. Like we all need the common goal, and the common goal is identified by by the impact that we want to have and by who we are as people. And if I don't like what someone else says, or if I don't like maybe I don't like the values that they have. So if I am a vegetarian or a vegan, I would, like the other day, I got an email from someone that was now not vegan or not vegan related, but oil field related, which is a hot topic here in Alberta. So anyways, I would more, if I have a specific direction or values, of course, then I would maybe I might be less likely to work with this organization if it doesn't align. if that makes sense. So, and of course, like if we bring it back to the website, we also need to bring this into consideration too when we formulate our messages, because that is how the heart connects. Because we connect, I think 95% of everything what we do is in the subconsciousness, and so we need to connect with them on a subconscious level, and that's the heart. So we need to talk about what are our values and why do we believe what we believe and why do we do what we do. And that is when we can easily at the end sell what we want to sell or gain members when we want to do that. So long story.
No, for sure. You touched on something very important. We need to find a way to show subliminal messaging on the website so we can connect to the subconscious better, I guess.
You see everything I just said in like rumbling in a you just one sentence, that's it. Mm-hmm.
Right. All right. So I guess the takeaway from this is that, like, Kerstin, what you're saying is that we like to look at like audience as segments, but we need to keep in mind that we're actually speaking to people. So the marketing and communication ultimately is happening to a person, and then we need to connect with their heart. We need to speak to their heart, and then that aspect, the human communication, that aspect should never be forgotten on our messaging, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I have a very I don't know, I read the other day the most famous elevator pitch is when Steve Jobs pitched. Do you know that one?
No.
No? Okay. So I hope I get it right. The most famous elevator pitch of all times was the question, and I think I have the book here, I have to look it up, who it was that he challenged. But he approached someone very famous, and the name I can't remember right now. But he said, okay, I give you like $1 million if you come to Apple. And he said no. And then he offered stock, and he said no. And then he flew over and said, do you want to join our company? And he said, no, I won't. And then he tried it one last time and he said, do you want to spend the rest of your life selling sugared water, or do you want to change the world? And that was when he joined Apple.
Right. So there was no talk of money, no talk of like role or anything else. It's the vision, connecting with the heart.
Exactly, that's the heart. And this is whatever we do, whatever communication pieces or segments, whatever we think of, like what is it that we, in our heart, what is it that connects people? And then everything else is easy because it's just tools. Like a website is just a tool, email is just a tool, right? But very important tools, but we need to use them for to get our message across.
Right. Mm-hmm. Actually, that's a very good segue to my next topic, which is email communication. And I guess when we are talking about emails, different people look at it in different ways, and we try to personalize our emails as much as possible, like as much of data that we have, right, down to the detail. Now, when we are structuring our email marketing or email communication with our overall audience, right? So how would you approach that? Because once again, like you said, that the same message needs to be presented in different ways so it connects to the heart of that particular audience. Mm-hmm. But if we are limited in time and resources, right, we don't have the time to actually write many emails to connect with so many hearts that we want to connect with. So where would you focus? Where would you start?
So I would start with one big piece of content. So no, first I would start with a message. Let's say, like in my previous example, I said safety and well-being. So let's say you create something like a bigger piece of content around that. And because we don't have a lot of time, so we can think about how can we chunk this down into different pieces. So rather than sending all of it in one long email, I would probably chunk it and say, what is it, like what of this part is more interesting for this audience? Let's say, I don't know, seniors. What is interesting and what is the same message? What does it mean for youth, for example? So we have one bigger piece or one bigger topic, and then you say, depending on who you write this email to, how does this apply to this, that, or this audience? And then you just adjust it. So I would have like one one bigger piece of message, and then additional sub-content that is more tailored toward the people that I want to speak to. And then you can use that for your social media marketing as well, because you can say 1 week we talk about this is the topic of the newsletter, and then we talk about the same things on social media. And you could also have a lead magnet where they can download something again to the same topic. And you could do this for the whole month. Like you could have like one topic for the whole month, or you can have like one topic for a week, depending on like how much capacity you have and how much like you want to send out and communicate with.
I think that's brilliant. Like when we actually have a message that we want to like send out. So what you're saying is that we start with a core message, like maybe create an overall email, and then just like create alternate versions of that email for the additional segments, or maybe like decide like which block should be included for which audience, right? But start with like one core message, and then not write like 3 completely different emails and spend so much time doing that, but start with one and then customize small pieces for the audience.
Exactly. Yeah. And you know what? How much time saves this, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And to be honest, like it, yeah.
And like another advantage that this has, because that's what we focus on in our work, there is usually you have your organization's mission, and then you have your day-to-day marketing. And in the day-to-day marketing, you think, what can we say today? Or what email can we write today? And you don't think, how can you connect this, right? But if you have your vision and your overarching message, and you say, okay, like this month or this quarter, for example, if you plan your marketing by a quarter, and you say this quarter we have this overarching message that we want to communicate, and then you can even say, okay, do we have specific awareness days, for example, that tie into that? And then you can plan it out just bucket list kind of style. And when you have those bucket lists, you can very easily, because we talked about board members earlier, you can very easily say, okay, board member, this is what we have planned for next quarter, next month. Do you have any information, any input that we can communicate with that? So then we can plan ahead, give other people in the organization the option to provide input, and this then helps to reduce the workload on the person that has to do it. Because what is the most terrifying thing? Coming up with content, right? So I think like if you plan ahead with bigger themes or buckets, and then you can more easily get buy-in, but also have people contribute. And then everything is not just on your own shoulder.
Right. And I guess, like, to be honest, personalizing email communication like this is not super complicated, really. So it feels like a lot of work that, I have to like write, maybe like I have to customize this one email and create like 3 more versions of it for the different audiences. But you are going to write that same content in the big email anyways, if you were to send one email, right? So we're going to spend the time anyways. So what we're doing is that we're making this communication a lot more effective, not working harder, but working smarter, right? We are just like being smarter and like making the emails much more impactful.
Yeah, exactly. And so part of like what we do, for example, is like we develop a branding spell book. So, and in the branding spell book, we start with what are those core messages? Because if you have it written down, I like this week, I had a conversation with someone. They were looking into rebranding, and they talked about the problem that they have with social media. She said, like, social media was going awesome because we had a volunteer that was working on it, and then the volunteer left, and now we have nothing. And and then sometimes, and this is like the common problem that we have in the nonprofit sector, where people just, sometimes it's a volunteer or like it's contract based, and then you have maybe someone that's really good and everything runs really smoothly, emails go out, social media is up to date, and then suddenly this person leaves and you have nothing. And then you have to train a new person again, and everyone brings their own personality, their own voice. But if you, and that's the big advantage of when you have like your branding or your branding spell book, how we call it, then you can write everything down, and these are words that we use every day. These are words that we don't want to use. These are emojis that we can use, and this is how we speak. These are messages that we want to get across. These are images that we can use. These are resources that we can use. So if you have all this in place, then it's so much easier. And the same for emails, because everything else is just a continuum of your core and your heart, right? There's it again, the heart.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So you touched on social media. So let's talk about that a bit more. So I guess we see this all the time, that like people spend a lot of time on social media without actually having a clear goal and without really having a better understanding of what are we getting from that marketing activity that we are doing, right? So if you were to plan a social media campaign for a client, or if you're for an organization, how would you approach it?
So I think there's different seasons in social media. So of course you should be there continuously and consistently, meaning like with your content as well as with your design, it should look good and consistent. And if you plan and everything that, let's say that's the foundation, and the foundation goes around like your core message and what you want to bring across, like the problems that you solve as organization, you need to talk to that. You also need to talk about like beliefs that people have, because you are in the problem solving business and in the belief changing business. So you need to talk about those things in different ways. Now you just ask about campaign. So if it's an awareness campaign, for example, or a capital campaign, then of course there are different stages that you need to plan. If it's an awareness campaign, just as an example, there was we did for Canadian Mental Health, there was a Mental Health Awareness Day. So for that, we also had like those. First of all, we had those messages, and then we were thinking about the bigger idea, how can we get this across? And then there is like kind of a pre-launch and the launch, and then the final day. And what you want to do is for all those different time slots, you want to create different messages and different pictures, of course, but it all needs to be tied together. And then, of course, it all needs to be tied back to your vision, because if you talk about mental health, for example, as Canadian Mental Health, of course it's clear that why you do this. But if I am a different organization and I talk about mental health, then this is a perfect time to connect with your own values and say, okay, this is why we do this. So not just saying mental health is important, but say mental health, we believe that mental health is important because, and this is why we do this. And this is how you can then build again the deeper connection. And this is what social media is all about.
Right. So you're saying paint a picture and have a very clear story in your social media messaging. It has to be a story. This is why we are doing what we are doing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. And like I know there's so much talk about like storytelling, but what I find people forget is it needs to connect to your vision, because people need to see why this story is important. I can create like an awesome story, like one of our clients, say, lent medical equipment. So I can have, if somebody returns a wheelchair to them, then I can have a picture and say, oh, they just returned a wheelchair, this is awesome, and this is good. But the story, and then they could top it, and then they say, what did this wheelchair help them with? And they could say, I could go to a wedding. Okay, this is a good story. But then you could say, our mission is to help people be independent, mobile, and have dignity. And then you can say, we helped them because they could go to a birthday party. If they stayed at home, they had missed the connection with their family. Remember, so this is like from benefits and features over to purpose. That's amazing. All right.
Yeah, of course, like you need to, for that you of course need to put some work in it. But if you have your overall vision and mission and okay, this is what we have to say, and then you can give that as guide to your people, your volunteers, then it's so much easier.
Right. I think you touched on two very important points here. So number one, you have to have your vision and mission like very clearly laid out and communicated to the like people who are doing the marketing, right? And then also at the same time, social media posts or activity cannot happen like in a vacuum. So there has to be a core campaign or core activity behind it. There has to be an event behind it. So like you said, if you want to like run an awareness campaign, so the goal is to actually maybe raise more awareness on a particular like topic that you are actually passionate about. So that is your core activity, and then social media is just becoming a tool for you to actually communicate that message. So the core event has to be there. You cannot communicate without the core event.
Exactly. Yeah, you nailed it.
Alrighty, good. Now let's take one level deeper. Like so in social media, if you go back to our diverse audience, right? So how much time would you spend for each bucket or maybe each umbrella?
Well, that also depends on like who is your most important audience, like who do you want to reach, and then depending on that, I would say how do I reach them best? Maybe like for example, if I want to increase my donor base, I would probably put more emphasis on email marketing rather than social media, because like with email it's still like the most, like for me, like I open all my emails, and with social media you have no control. You don't know what you see. Who pops up in your feed. So and I think like in terms of time, like identify like who is most important, and then select the best tool for them, and then you create content, and that content you can then use for all these other tools that you have, like your social media, or I don't know, if you have an overarching topic, you can have your podcast or like videos or whatever it is. But I think this is how I would do it.
Right. So I guess we shouldn't be just dividing social media across our communication buckets, but really try to understand like which buckets is social media popular in, right? And then like know that like we can reach those buckets or those audiences through this one particular tool. I think that's great. Yeah, we often forget that the communication channel that we are using may not be a popular one for the audience that we're using it for. And then you send out the message, and then all you hear is crickets.
Yes,
like no one is interacting with that.
Yeah, exactly. I had in one of my masterminds, I had in a lawyer, and she tried out last year when COVID started. She started with TikTok. She said, like, you know what? I just did it for fun because my son said you should be on TikTok. I said, what? I'm a lawyer. What should I do on TikTok? Within like 6 months, she had 20,000 followers, and she said, "I never expected this, but this became like one of her main channels for her marketing."
Wow!
Yeah.
Wow! Right.
So I think in terms of audience, we have to think of message, and then how applies this to these different audiences. I know like some companies, they use Instagram just for their just to attract new employees. So it's very internal. So they share things about their culture, what they do, and maybe like a typical client would not like be very attracted with that. But as if your goal is to get amazing new employees that wanna, right? Then this is like, it all depends on the strategy. You can do anything with it. You just need to be aware who you want to reach, and then you tailor your message.
Absolutely. That's amazing. Okay. So Kerstin, now if I am a professional association or a nonprofit and I do not have an overarching marketing and communication plan set yet, right? Where do I start?
Where do you start? So I would start again with your vision. What do you want to reach? And then break it down. What could a possible goal be for this year, or like where do you want to see yourself in a year from now? And then you break it down in quarters. So that's what we usually do. And then like for each quarter you set a milestone. Like what would it be? Like of course it needs to be measurable somehow. If you say like I want to be the best, I don't know, the most amazing fundraising campaign, or we want to reach like $200,000 like this year, and you don't break it down, you don't have your measurable goals for the month, and then it becomes really easy overwhelming. So I would set goals that are realistic, and then you can say, okay, in order to reach this, what do we have to do? Like, you can plan your campaign, you can look at awareness days, you can think about strategic partnerships. So once you have your goal, then you can start thinking about the different strategies and tactics that you can apply to that. And so I would start with like the quarter milestone 1, and then once you have reached that, you work towards the second and the third and the fourth. And if you do that, you can have your board on board as well. And so what we usually do is we have like a visioning session with the board in advance so that everyone is on the same page. And then we set the goals for the year. And based on that, the communication team works on the quarters and the milestones for that.
Right, that's great.
Yeah.
Now, I want to take it again like one level deeper.
Go deeper.
So say we have an overarching goal for the whole year, and then we are planning for the first quarter, for Q1. Then in order to actually execute plan the communication within that one quarter, like where would you start? What would you do?
So sorry, what you had your overarching yearly plan, and then what did you say?
And then now, like we have to plan for the first quarter for Q1. Now, how would you plan the specific activities for Q1?
Okay, so let's say you want to increase more awareness. So that's a typical goal. Like we want to increase awareness for our cause. So then you first have to identify or to clarify what is it that you want to create awareness about. So you need to identify specific messages and the people that you want to reach. So that could be one measurable goal that you start with in Q1. So identify who it is and really what is the message. Like messaging should be one of the things that you have to check off. Once you have done that, the next step could be, okay, now that we know the message and we know who we want to talk to or who we want to reach, what is the best tool? So checking, like finding out what the best tool is another check mark for that milestone. And then from there, you can say, okay, let's say we have identified, like donors, for example, and we say, okay, we reach them best by email, but we have a really small list. Like maybe I have only 100 people on my list and I have focused on social media right now. So then I would say, okay, like the goal for quarter 1 is we need to increase our list by, let's say 1,000 people. So in 3 months, grow the list to 1,000 people. How do we do this? So then you have the goal, 1,000 people for the 3 months. And then you think about, okay, how can we grow this list? So then you think about, you might need a lead magnet. What are they interested in? Maybe it's a specific series about a specific topic that they are interested in, because I know because I know who my audience is and I know what's in their heart, what they're interested in. So I could come up, for example, with a speaker series with a topic that they are interested in, and they can see it with downloading it, right? And for that, I have the email address. So this could be like, then you think about strategies on how can I grow this list? And then I would not think in terms of list, but I would think in terms of people. How can I communicate with 1,000 people by the end of 3 months? And then when I think about those people, I connect with a person rather than with a list, because a list is like a segment. It's kind of weird, right? So and then also think about it. Even if you have quality is better than quantity. If you imagine, if you can't pitch your cause or your organization to one person, you won't be able to do it to 1,000. So that's why your message is the first thing you have to nail. If you don't nail it, your list of 1,000 people doesn't help you, right? Because you can have 100 that are very engaged and that will maybe bring you to the fundraising goal that you need, or you have 1,000 that don't communicate with you. Like the quantity is not what's important. So that's the next thing. Like always have the person in mind. But this is how I would start, or how we start creating like a marketing plan, and then we work from quarter to quarter, because sometimes you try things, some things work and others don't, and then you have to adjust.
Kerstin, so I guess the structure that you shared for marketing for 1 quarter was amazing. Do you have any material on your website that we can link to around this topic so people can learn more about this?
Actually, I have something that I could share with you. I can give you the URL later on.
Sure, sounds good, and we can add it to the show notes.
Yeah, so I did a webinar the other day about like goal setting and planning, and how to chunk it and how to plan it. And this is exactly what I have as a freebie for your audience if they are interested in learning about this.
That will be great. Yeah, I know I can talk about marketing and communication with you for a whole day, I guess, but we'll save our audience, and then we'll keep it short.
Let's meet for a virtual beer later.
Yes, exactly. That's right. After the COVID, for sure. When the lockdown's open. Yeah.
Let's meet virtually first, and then.
Right. Alrighty. So, so Kerstin, we are towards the end of the podcast for today. Now, what would be your key takeaway for the audience for today?
So, key takeaway would be start with your audience in mind, and with your vision. Like, what is it that they want? And ask yourself, what value can I give them, rather than how can they help me?
That's amazing. How can you help first before asking for something from them? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Kerstin, I have 2 other very quick questions for you. Can you share a personal habit that has contributed a lot to your success?
Well, I think the biggest shift was you have to be the person that can achieve all those things first, because otherwise you won't get there. So a lot of people think about, I need to have things to do this and then I can be, but actually it's the other way around. You need to work with your vision in mind, from your vision and not towards your vision. So be the person that can do all those things first, and work from your vision and not to your vision.
Nice. So build the person first who is capable of like getting to that vision, right? Be the
Exactly.
person. Amazing. All right. And can you share a digital strategy or tool that helps you be more effective in your work?
So we try 1,000 different things, because we are also entrepreneurs, and there's there's always like shiny objects everywhere. So things that I definitely would use is a tool like Monday or ClickUp, like things where you can really plan your day, because everything you don't plan, you don't do. And I think the biggest tool that doesn't cost anything is your Google Calendar. And so I think this is something that that really helps me. If you just have a calendar and plan in buckets again, have like a time, let's say like from 1 to 2, from 1 to 3 you do content planning, or from 8 to 10 you do this, and then you answer emails only in a specific time, so that you really have your day structured. I think this is the biggest thing, next to the project management or task organizer.
No, I think that's brilliant once again, Kerstin, because I find that like a lot of us spend our whole day distracted. We are like texting, we are checking emails like every 5 minutes, and then like we're checking Slack messages, like there's like a ding, there's like notification from everywhere, right? And then how do you actually maintain focus on the thing that is most important to you? And I guess what you're saying is that like in our day-to-day work, we need to make sure that we are planning our day really well, that this like block of time is dedicated to this one thing, and during that time I am not going to check my emails, my phone will be on do not disturb, and then I'm not going to check any Slack messages, right?
Exactly.
Nice, nice.
I'm
All right.
working on it. I'm not
You're
a
working
pro,
on-
but I'm working on it. It's a work in progress.
Right, right. So I use something called the Pomodoro Technique. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. So
No, I don't know. Tell me more about it.
yeah, so the Pomodoro Technique, what I do with that is like I set aside like a block of time, so 45 minutes. That during this 45 minutes, I set a timer for 45 minutes, and during that 45 minutes, I'm just going to work on one task. So, and no matter what happens, if the world falls apart, I'm not going to like move my focus from that one task. When the 45 minutes when it runs out, I finish that. I maybe like get up, have a tea or coffee, or take an actual break for 15 minutes and check email or do whatever I want. And then after that 15-20 minutes of break, I set another 45-minute timer for the next task. What I find is that the world can always wait for 45 minutes. Like in that 45 minutes, like nothing will go wrong. No one, nothing will blow up. So yeah, my emails can wait.
Perfect. I love that. I need to try that.
Sure. Alrighty. Kerstin, so where can people reach you if they have more questions?
Well, they can email me, Kerstin at non-profit.today. I'm also on LinkedIn and I'm on Instagram, and I can share the handles with you as well.
Sure, that will be great. And you actually have a very interesting domain name as well. This is the first domain that I saw with a .today domain.
Yeah, so we are very into that, the new domain names. There's so many options, marketing, branding. Yeah.
I want to ask you one last question before we wrap up. So with that domain, when your domain name ends with .today, do you find that like people often might think that it's a typo because there's no .com or anything?
It's possible. Yes, it's possible, but I think people need to get used to it.
Exactly. Be the change you want to happen in the world. Right?
Exactly. Otherwise, we would still be on horses and carriages.
Totally. That's right. Yeah, it's time for us to change our domain as well.
Exactly.
All right, Kerstin, thank you so much for your time today. It was great chatting with you.
Awesome. Likewise. Thank you very much for having me.
That was the episode with Kerstin today. I'm usually the first one to learn on our podcast episodes, and there were a lot of golden nuggets in this episode. If you want to learn more about Kerstin's work, please reach out to her or go to their website. And if you want to grow the membership of your professional association, do take a look at the workshops on our website at grype.ca/workshops. That is grype.ca/workshops. Alright then, I look forward to speaking to you in one of our future episodes. Bye for now.